Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Text Messages. Today is March 15th, 2018. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. I had to make some travel to procure some sponsorship for the show. So I went ahead and I set up a studio in my parents' basement, a place that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and basically where I more or less lived probably my entire life. It's like physically, I live in the Text Messages studios, but more or less, probably from a mental, possibly even spiritual standpoint, maybe I still live here in my parents' basement. Yeah, we just always had good times, great oldies down here. There's hundreds of Nintendo games to play, a bunch of Sega games, Atari, Intellivision, ColecoVision, the Odyssey, the Sega Saturn, the Nintendo 64. You name it, I pretty much had it. We had all the good stuff as kids, but then ultimately you grow up, and then you don't really, then you're confronted with serious issues of the day, and you don't need to screw around with video games anymore. So here we are. I'm Rick Tex, the parasite. We're in my parents' basement. Now, what I wanted to go ahead and talk about today was, we're still remaining in the theme of springtime here. So I want to talk about if people that are interested in running, because once you transition from winter time to spring and then to summer and into fall, people generally like to run a lot in the springtime because then you can be outside, you can enjoy the great outdoors, you can get plenty of sunshine and the UV rays and these rays, that rays, vitamin D, nice suntan, so you look good and all that good fun stuff. But ultimately, if you are going to, say for example, you run a lot in the winter time, you run on treadmills, you use an elliptical, the stepper machines, all that fun stuff. So you're probably in fairly good shape, so you can just, the one thing to probably consider is when you're running on tar or on pavement, you're going to have to deal with a lot more of the impact, and you don't want to prematurely wear out your cartilage or your bones or your hip bones, and if your body is out of balance, you might get some weird back pain and things of that nature. So when you transition from winter to springtime, you want to make sure you have good shoes, good quality shoes. Now, some people have recommended to change out your shoes every 2-3 months or whatever. Maybe they measure it by steps. I guess it's totally up to you. You can look at the bottom of the shoe and you can see wear patterns on it and whatnot, but it's like I've been wearing the same shoes for probably about 4 or 5 years, and I usually go walk around at night for, on average, I probably walk about 2 to 3 hours a day. It's not like super fast-paced walking or anything. It's just slow, casual walking. You can enjoy the scenery and not get too overexerted, and it gives yourself time to think, and you're not using all your energy to move yourself. So, yeah, how often you want to replace your shoes? Maybe it's how much money you want to waste on them or something like that too. If you're getting a great deal on shoes, then yeah, I guess move them in and out as often as what's felt necessary. But yeah, ultimately, good pair of shoes. Now, if you're going to be running on hard trails, or if you're going to be running on sketchy terrain, then it's a good idea to know your terrain before you engage your terrain. Because I used to go run around the high school and then the cemetery and all that, and cornfields and more mausoleums and all that stuff. But there was a certain part where they had these old fence poles that used to be nailed into the ground. So if you would run over that section of grass, at nighttime it would look very innocuous. However, during the daytime you could see these big, deep holes in there. So if you caught an ankle or caught a toe in there, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get a sprain, possibly even a break. So the last thing you want to do is put yourself in danger of long-term, giving yourself a long-term handicap to where you're not even able to run in the first place. So yeah, if you're going to run around in mountains, trails, and people's backyards, it's just walk the terrain, maybe jog the terrain a couple times during the daytime. So you got a pretty good idea of where any obstacles or any unexpected anomalies could occur. That way, you're safe, and And maybe if there's any bears or wild animals that claim that's their domain, then you're able to run away and escape them if you don't have a broken or a sprained ankle. And the other thing too that I found is usually, I mean, obviously if you run during the day, you get all the benefits of the sun, and you know it's probably safer too because there's a lot of other people out in public, and you don't have to worry about some weird guy that hangs out on the side of a trail with a billy club and is just waiting to beat somebody up for some mysterious reason. So I mean, daytime running, it's all fine and great and dandy and everything too. But personally, I usually prefer nighttime just because it's you know, it's less of a distraction. You're not running in front of cars or getting in people's ways, and it's more of a tranquil and peaceful experience. You don't have to worry about all the sights, sounds, and noises that surround you. I mean, at nighttime, you know, you can hear a train from 5 miles away, so you know, it's more relaxing. It's comforting. I think the natural rhythm of your heartbeat is lower at night too. Now that means you don't. If you got to get up at 4 in the morning, obviously you're not gonna be running around at night at 11 o'clock. But you know, it's say on a Friday night or something. Then yeah, you know, you can when nightfall comes, you know, just go put on some headphones and then run around at night and see how it is. I mean, everyone's preference is a little bit different too. And you know, if you're afraid of other animals or people, then just bring a machine gun with, or a taser gun, or a throwing stars, nunchucks, the size, those little swords. You know, you could bring a katana sword too. There's an endless array of artifacts that you could bring with to assist you at your side. So I mean, you always need to feel safe and wear the right shoes for the job. And there is this thing called Couch to 5K. Basically how that works is you would probably start walking just the whole 5K. You know, you'd find a trail or you map out some route in your neighborhood, and then you just walk the 5K. And then eventually you would maybe jog 100 meters here, 100 meters there, and then just gradually increment up to jogging the whole 5K. And then eventually trying to improve your time, you know, get a little faster every day or whatever. And another important thing too is to monitor. Nowadays we got some pretty good technology. We can actually monitor our heart rate just by a simple bracelet around your wrist. I mean, I don't know, a heartometer or whatever it's called. So yeah, I mean, you could easily use one of them, you know, get a target heart rate, 170 beats per minute or something along those lines. So then you'd run to a point where you're at 170 beats per minute, and then say you'd run 5K in 15 minutes, so 20 minutes. And then if your heart is getting more efficient and if you're getting in better shape, you know, losing weight, if you're becoming a lighter load and all that, you'll be able to run at 170 beats per minute, and your time should descend as well. So if you document stuff like that and pay close attention to it, you can better analyze if what you're doing is right. I mean, if you're running, but then you're eating, you know, a pound of potato chips, or you're drinking sugar straight out of the bag, or drinking a vat of honey or of barbecue cooking oil, you can run all you want, but ultimately if you're putting more fat and dangerous chemicals and pesticides and synthetic this, that, and the other thing, that your body has to then create its own detoxifiers and use all the energy that you put in to create those detoxifiers, your heart is not going to be very efficient if it's spending all of its energy creating the detoxifiers for your body from eating, you know, a vat of cooking oil or whatever. So yeah, I mean, if you document your progress, you know, your heart rate, your time, you can even get like the pedometer or stepometer, whatever they're called. You know, you just wear it and it measures your steps. So if your stride is becoming more efficient, if it's becoming more longer, then you're going to take less steps in the same amount of distance. And then hopefully your heart rate, it's probably a good idea to focus on a good heart rate. Then you know that you're not working too hard, you're not working too light. Because I mean, if you just go all out and then pass out after 400 meters or something like that, then it's just not sustainable. You can't do it perpetually. So you need to be cognizant of it's good to just monitor your body. I mean, you got your brain that talks with your gut and your heart and your liver and your pancreas and your colon and all that. So you definitely want to listen to those signals while you're running. And then too, that if you get like a sore knee, or if you're getting one ankle is sore or the other. I mean, if it's something that occurs over time, you definitely want to get that checked out. Maybe see if your body is in balance, or do this test where you close your eyes and you put your head down and lift it back up, or put it to side to side, then see if you're looking straight ahead, because that'll help you determine if your spine is completely straight or if it's leaning to one side or the other. If you really want to, I guess you can go to a chiropractor and get one of those free consultations, but I mean I really don't know about that profession. It seems that, like everything in life, there's good people and then there's bad people involved with it. So if you get a good reference to one, then by all means check him or her out, and then go from there. They see if your body's leaning to one side and you're running, you're probably just gonna. I mean, it's not a good idea to just stop running altogether, but it's a good idea to at least try to take steps and be aware and maybe corrective action, and then just to ease the load of the running. Because if you're thinking, well, I got a spinal stenosis, so I'm just going to sit on my ass all day, and that's certainly a defeatist mentality, and it's relaxing, and you don't have to be in pain all the time, but I mean, ultimately, everyone's dealt a unique hand in life. It's just a matter of how you play that hand. And if you have a unique circumstance like that and you're able to cure it and rectify it, then you have a very unique ability to help others cure and rectify a similar issue as that. So anything you do in life, regardless of how seemingly insignificant it is, it does uniquely qualify you to help or to contribute in some ways. So I mean, if you got some weird tendonitis in one of your knees or something like that, then you can, maybe there's different foods you can eat. You say like, I cut Brussels sprouts out of my diet and I started eating broccoli and cauliflower instead, and then it cured the tendonitis. Just basic things like that. You document what you eat and everything, and then you document your pain and threshold and how much you're running and all that. And I mean, it just allows you to, just because you have a problem that somebody else doesn't have, it's no excuse to just sit around and whine and cry about it and then go on Facebook and say that it's a mental illness, because, everybody has their unique set of problems, and you share some of those problems with other people. So if you put in the time, the effort, the energy, the thought, just the diligence, perseverance to immediately find that problem and hopefully solve it at some point, you're going to be able to assist and help out other people too. Not only that, they're probably going to be able to assist and help you out too. Because if you're working together symbiotically to solve these issues, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. It brings everybody it brings every state to a higher state. See, to make Minnesota great again also means making Wisconsin great again, making Missouri great again, making California great again, making Iowa great again, making all the states great again. So just to say making Minnesota great again, it doesn't mean by neglecting or crapping on all the other states too. Because the whole idea is to work symbiotically, pro-human, pro-common sense, pro-family. So there's no excuse to sit around and whine and cry if you got a sore knee from running. It's like you've identified a problem, now you need to figure out the cause and how to correct it. That doesn't mean you get into a routine where you're running 5 miles a day and your knee starts to hurt, but you want to continue to run 5 miles a day because that's what your routine is, and now you're addicted to it and you have to do it, otherwise you feel like a piece of garbage. So then you start taking the pain pills, shooting up with smoking marijuana or something to try to get rid of the pain, or you shoot your knee up with these weird injections, and then you do all these weird things to your body that you have a pretty good idea is probably unhealthy, but you figure you need to do it so that you can continue your habit of running. That masking the symptoms is basically the whole idea of the pharmaceutical industry, and it is my opinion that is not. It's a profitable way. You can sustain profits through using that method, and it's also very helpful in dumbing down the population. But if you want to work in a symbiotic environment where everybody is achieving successful things and making America great again, you have to identify the cause. You have to carefully document the cause. You have to persevere, and you have to attack it and tackle it. Yeah, that's really all there is to it. You know, we're all going to have our own different circumstances. Yeah, everybody wants to make as much money or look like Arnold Schwarzenegger with doing very little effort. Fact is, just not realistic. You know, it's the three steps. The three steps to our existence. Challenge. You're going to find challenges. If you don't find any, you want to seek them out. And then the success, where you take the necessary steps. Sometimes you got to make little sacrifices. Sometimes you got to make pretty big sacrifices. Well, and then ultimately the reward. I mean, you need to reward yourself in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean, you know, Friday night you go on the corner in St. Paul and buy a bag of cocaine and sniff the cocaine. Is that your reward? Because obviously that's destructive behavior at some point down the road. I mean, you might get arrested or shot or beat up or something, or, you know, bent over a few car hoods or thrown into a river. Just try to avoid destructive. You know, rewarding yourself is just something as simply as just sitting down, relaxing, looking into the sky and thinking, you know what, that was a pretty good thing. That's it. You know, it's just, if your brain can produce dopamines by looking into the sky, patting yourself on the, maybe slapping yourself on the ass, then that's so much more efficient and effective than if you need to watch some pornos or whatever, or, you know, smoke some marijuana or drink a bunch of alcohol with a cocktail of pain pills too. I mean, it's common sense. You know you have a pretty damn good idea what's bad for you, so you just try to avoid them when you're rewarding yourself. I mean, a reward doesn't have to be some elaborate, materialistic, you know, you go out and buy yourself a Tesla Roadster because you got a job and then you've been working it for 5 years. Now you have a whole bunch of money. It's like, yeah, I mean, it'd be a great, fun thing and everything too, but you don't need to set extravagant requirements for your reward. As long as you know you did a damn good job, you helped out other people, you bring everyone to a higher state, you have a sense of purpose and belonging, then ultimately that's enough of a reward for a lot of people. So that being said, we're going to have to go on break pretty soon, and what I want to do is, we're going to have Good Times Balls Deep coming up pretty soon. I think there's a few issues with the sound editor equipment, but I think we're probably going to have to put the pedal down pretty soon and then just take it and run with whatever ideas we got and then see what happens. We're going to be filming some, well, maybe not film, but we're going to be going through some practice rounds and training rounds just to make sure that the show is acceptable, and then it's up to I mean, obviously it's going to be a really good show, so we want to make sure it's up to acceptable standards, and that, you know, the host of Good Times Balls Deep is definitely a perfectionist. He, you know, it's flawless or nothing, so it's very important that we go through the at least some degree of practice. You know, it's not like this show where you just, if you're on travel, you just go hang out in your parents' basement and then stand in front of some wall and say stuff. I mean, this is a very carefully crafted and produced show, and the quality is going to glimmer to not only all the viewers at home, but it's also going to glimmer to all the guests on the show too. So we need to, you know, I'm not, as far as how much the guests are going to be screened, I mean, the host of Good Times Balls Deep is he's very well versed in identifying just great people that contribute to their environment. They're pro-human, pro-family, pro-common sense. They're just great people to be around. You know, they're the type of people that will make America great again. So as far as the guests go, I'm probably not going to have any problem with that whatsoever. So it's just a matter of getting our training videos together. So ultimately, when we do finally make the airwaves, you know, YouTube or Daily Motion or video.tv or whatever it may be, and, you know, we'll just hit the ground running, and everyone should love it. So that being said, you're listening to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Text. We're going to have a word from some of our sponsors here, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thanks for watching.
GLH means great-looking hair. GLH instantly covers your bald spot, leaving you with great-looking hair. And ladies with thinning hair or bald spots, GLH solves the problem instantly. And the GLH hair system is not expensive.
That's incredible. I've been getting harassing for being bald. I'm only a young man. No more dates without being called old man, but the babes are back.
I would definitely, as a matter of fact, I want to order 1 year's supply of this.
Applying GLH to yourself is so easy. Just spray on, then brush after using the finishing shield, and you're done. And with GLH, there's no problem with the rain.
It's a phenomenal product. I highly recommend it. The club saved a lot of money.
Oh, I started using GLH about 4 months ago after my barber told me I'd never grow any more hair. Hey, Emmett, look at me now.
Order GLH now for only $39.92 and get the $15 trim comb free. Or send $39.92 plus S&H to Ronco, Box 4057, Beverly Hills, California.
Welcome back to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We had to call an emergency show in a different location here because today I had to go on the road to try to procure some sponsorship for the show. So between attending to propitiate current sponsors and obtaining new sponsors, we might have to do a few shows on the road. So just bear with us though. We're going to bring you text messages 3 days a week, most likely Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Good Times Balls Deep. We're not yet sure when that show will air exactly, but we will be able to bring that announcement to you in the very near future. So, now, the producers, after I filmed that previous segment, the producers made sure to film me and remind me of the Smarten You Up segment. So what they did is they provided me with some research articles here. And the article that I want to look at today is European Society in Cardiology. They did a study where heart attack patients were prescribed antidepressants. Heart attack patients prescribed antidepressants had a 66% higher mortality rate 1 year later. So now, you can easily say, oh, well, people aren't antidepressants in the first place, they're probably more prone to death, which, yeah, I guess that's most likely true. But the reality is, as far as antidepressants go, and your heart health, like, when I was talking earlier in the first segment about having the wrist to measure your heart rate, the heartometer, that's a pretty good thing to have because a lot of people, they need to, as far as your resting heart rate, I suppose it's not really indicative of your health, but I mean, if there's something weird going on where you got 100 beats per minute and then you got 60 beats per minute, then you might have an ass full of trouble. So it's just good to monitor the systems of your body when you can. And then, as far as heart healthy food or heart healthy this or that and the other thing, I mean, there's so much circuitous science out there that it's so difficult to know, and for me to stand up here and definitively say, oh, eating bananas is healthy or eating toasted oats is healthy, because you might be glucose intolerant, or you might be, there might be some weird pesticides and fertilizers on the toasted oats that make it unhealthy, or, maybe it's just not a healthy food in the first place. Maybe you got a bad batch, or one of the ways I like to determine the quality of food is 1 pound is equal to 3,500 calories. So if you take a pound of a food and it's close to 3,500 calories, there's not a lot of waste in the food. Whereas when you take a pound of cereal, it might only be 1,800 calories. So it's the half a pound of the cereal is waste, and your body doesn't use it for anything. Just goes through your big intestines, your small intestines, your colon, and it expels into your toilet, into the sewer, into the septic. So to judge the quality of the food, now we're talking dried foods here. Obviously, if you drink a pound of water, it has no calories. That doesn't mean it's bad or the quality is low. And same with something like yogurt. Yogurt is it's a wet food. It's a bit of a solid, got some liquid qualities, characteristics to it, properties. So when you look at a pound of yogurt and you see, oh, it's only got 800 calories, that must mean there's a bunch of waste. There's probably just a lot of water weight in it, and Yeah, maybe you could intricately measure your urine and your feces and the food you intake, and then to figure out exactly how much waste you're eating or consuming or digesting. I mean, hey, if you got some sophisticated equipment to do that, then by all means, that'd probably be a very prudent thing to do. But the reality is, if I'm, as far as heart health, I don't really know how this correlates, but if you're putting a bunch of waste in your body, your heart is going to have to work harder so that your body can produce the necessary white cells, white cell, this cell, that cell, the other cell, and all your antibiotics to combat this waste and to get it out of your system. So your heart is going to have to work harder, and it's going to have to work on pointless endeavors that you could have just easily avoided in the first place. So if you eat, say you get a pound of cashews, it's about 3,300 calories. So there's like only about 200 calories worth of waste material. So I mean, what would that 200 divided by 3,500, whatever that would equate to in pounds? So that's really not that much. Which is why when people go hiking and they put on their little hiking boots and the shorts and the tank top and then those funny hats and stuff, and then they have like the cigar hanging out of their mouth, or they got some cigarette in their ear, and people that are going mountain hiking, they for a long period of time, they generally prefer peanuts because the weight per energy is at such a great level. Now, people that go on shorter term trips and just want an instant energy boost, they usually go with the gel or the carbohydrates or sugars or something. Personally, I wouldn't eat that. Body probably won't even digest it, so it would be completely useless for me. But for other people who have a better equipped digestive system, then yeah, if you want quick energy, just get the sugar, the little cubes or whatever. And then another thing too is, some of these cubes will be sold to look all fine and dandy on the shelf, and you look at it and be like, oh, high fructose corn syrup, I wonder what that is. Or to be like aspartame, or just these weird named products. So just read the label, research the product a little bit, see if it's for you, see if you're a little sketchy about the science. I mean, there might be 9 studies that say it's perfectly fine for you, it's all great and fine. And then the studies are funded by like American Sugar Industry or the Rockefeller Foundation, who also funded eugenics. And it'll just be all these companies that are very suspicious and suspect, and you're not really sure if you can trust them. So it's just, I mean, yeah, just be cognizant of what you're putting into your body. But ultimately, for good heart health, I would just see, that's the only thing I can measure food from. Just quality of food. If I document it, how I feel, what happens, et cetera, how my energy is, if I'm lifting weights, how many weights I'm lifting, if I'm walking and feeling pretty damn good after a couple months of eating a certain diet, then I'll adhere and stick to that diet. It's all empirically based. I can't put a camera on a piece of cashew and see exactly what happens to it as it goes through my entire digestive system, and then how it communicates and reacts with every single microbiotic cell inside the human body. It's not possible. So that's why we just need common sense. And don't let people tell you all this silly stuff like, oh, if you eat sucralose, it's just fine, it doesn't do anything to you. It probably does, but we just don't know what the hell it... I mean, when you drink water that's dirty, when I say dirty, I mean, you might have, maybe your septic leaked into your well or something, then you got all these weird bacteria in it that are very dangerous and unhealthy and attack all your good bacteria, the bacteria that's just naturally occurring in your body. If you get a bunch of bacteria that attacks those types of bacteria, then you're definitely gonna have some problems. And then that's just regular water. So regular water has no calories. So you figure, well, you just drink it, goes right through your body, it does whatever, So I mean, you can't always learn everything you read or everything you hear either. I mean, a lot of the stuff I say, it's pretty rare, but some of the stuff I say is probably a little inaccurate. I can't just say with 100% certainty that everything I'm saying is 100% factual because, for one, we do zero. The only prep work we do is when the producers give me these little these little studies, and then they basically just research a headline and then it's a brief compendium. So there is a little bit that can fall through the cracks here and there. So you always want to do your own research. That's the thing. I mean, I know it sounds lazy for me to say, oh, just do your own research. I can abstain from completely anything I'm saying. But just the fact is, if you feel, most of the stuff I say you probably don't give a damn about. You're thinking, well, I'm never going to run. Why would I care about that? I'm never going to garden, so who gives a crap? Or the chickens aren't allowed in my city, and I know the laws, so I'm not going to mess around with that. That's fine and dandy. But if you are interested in something, if you do see if you are drinking water and you're vomiting from it, you might think, well, maybe I should get this water tested, or go to Fleet Farm, get one of those test kits and see if there's bad bacteria, or if there's nitrates in it, or if the acidity level is too high, or if the hardness is too high, or whatever. So I mean, it's just, this is more of not really a catalyst, but it's probably the foundation of information that you can use to apply to your life. You know, I'm out of 10 people, I'd probably be in the lower 2% of intelligence. So I mean, I'm definitely not the smartest guy to just unconditionally follow everything I say like it's some biblical religious prophecy. You know, it's just, I'm just trying to make America great again. And if bringing realization of certain important topics to people is how that's done, then that's what we got to do. So just to sum everything up here, if you want your heart to be healthy, do a good deal of exercise. Nowadays, in the 21st century, anybody in America can live a sedative lifestyle if they choose to. Not saying it's wrong. Not saying it's bad if you choose to live a sedative lifestyle. I'm just saying it is available to everybody who chooses to. And then, if you're working in a factory or on a farm and you're working pretty hard all day, you don't need to add any auxiliary exercises to your routine. I mean, if you're baling hay 3 hours in the morning and throwing cows around in the afternoon and then wrestling with pigs and alligators in the evening, what's the point of throwing on some headphones and listening to Good Times, Balls Deep, and then running around at 10 o'clock at night? It just doesn't make any sense. You have to be able to rest and relax too, so that your muscles have time to build up and your heart has time to sort of relax, recharge, and reload for the next day. So for sedative lifestyles though, then it's definitely very healthy to add something like running. Maybe during your lunch break, just go run around a block a couple times for half an hour. Maybe do some speed walking. Get some of your coworkers involved. One thing that I found too is when you're just sitting around on a couch and just hanging out with your bros and your gals and you're just talking, you don't really deep dive into many topics. It's just kind of half-hearted conversation. People are somewhat into it. Some people watch TV, some people are on their phone. When you're walking around with people, you don't really have any other distractions. You can really get some insightful communication and conversation going with other people. So maybe some advice to people that are dating for the first time. It's like, rather than going to a coffee shop and then just sitting around and staring at a cup of soy latte or listening to some guy type away on his keyboard, just meet someone in a park or at a bench and then just walk around with them. You'll get very valuable insight into them. They'll get very valuable insight into you, and it's just a 360 win. So running, walking, great ways to keep your heart healthy. And, we talked about biking last week. That's another excellent way too. I mean, biking, it's a little bit of an unnatural position too. I mean, walking and running is available to anyone in anywhere under any circumstances, unless you're severely crippled or you're handicapped or paraplegic or whatever the deal is. And, actually, I've known some people that had wheelchairs and they had regular jobs. They're normal people. Hell, one guy even gave me a ride to work. So I mean, he was probably more productive at that work site than I was. So it's not to say that if you do have some, this goes back to the first segment of the show. Everybody's going to have unique challenges and obstacles. Just a matter of how you attack them and how you don't necessarily have to always overcome them, but along the journey, if you continue to learn, if you continue to apply what you learn to what you already know, eventually you're going to build up enough of a forward assault to give yourself a pretty good chance of overcoming that, or just maybe accepting it and moving on. And it's just so totally up to you. So we're going to do one more study here because we got quite a bit of them. Let's see. University of Kent said belief in conspiracies come from negative early child caregiver abuse. So basically what that means is to believe in conspiracies, you have to abandon authoritative principles. If you just unconditionally believe and follow anything anyone ever tells you, you're never going to believe in conspiracies, because everyone that has access to cable news networks or even local news networks, and they can't really get into conspiracies because official government stories don't align with conspiracies. So if a news organization goes along with something the government isn't going to tell them, then all of a sudden the FCC will take away their license, it'll fine them, and a bunch of bad things will happen. So the cable news networks, they're emboldened to government stories. And what that means is that us watching, we have to just unconditionally accept what they're saying because they're our authorities. So if people who have a caregiver who mistreats them or whatever, they're going to have very little trust in authority, and they won't take any comfort in trusting authority. So they'll seek out answers. As individuals, they'll seek out the questions of life, and they will listen. There's always going to be good, fun, loving people in every step of the journey of knowledge and everything. But they're not going to just unconditionally follow anyone who's an authoritative figure. Now that, even if you're in college or something and you get a textbook by Prentice and Hall or whatever, one of the biggest textbook manufacturers, if you want to pass a grade and if you want to pass a class, get a good grade and get a slap on the back from a teacher and everything, and you want to get a good job because you got these good grades to show for it, you're going to need to unconditionally follow and memorize and believe most everything in that textbook. But in the back of your mind, you just need to know science is not a constant. Science is always ever changing. So even if a textbook says something is so-and-so, it's based on current theories, sometimes even hypotheses, experiments, and experiments are heavily influenced by the current theory. So if you design an experiment to prove a certain theory, in the back of your mind, you're just assuming the theory is true. So you set up the experiment to try to prove that theory is true, rather than just setting up an experiment and then seeing what happens to see if the theory is true. So it's very complicating and complex, and it's probably something that someone of my intellect shouldn't be deep diving into because it might just cause a big voluminous confusion in the ladies and gentlemen viewing at home. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to I wanted to get back into running a little bit. There were a few things that I didn't quite tackle, so in the next segment we'll likely get back into the running topic a little bit. But before we do that, Good Times Balls Deep is in the very near future. The host is just totally exhilarated. He's doing a lot of practice speed. He's probably going to do a lot more prep work than me with this show. He has complete and total respect for the audience, for you, the ladies and gentlemen viewing at home, just for his family, for his country, for probably the world. He's just a real upstanding guy. He needs everything to be perfect. So just bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, because I've been getting a decent amount of sleep again, but that's not to say the excitement is waning in any way, shape, or form. Because I still feel like my heart is racing at 180 beats per minute just standing around or thinking about Good Times Balls Deep. And if I can in any way permeate that into you, the ladies and gentlemen viewing at home, so that you can see the greatness that's on the horizon and then get you excited about it so that you can mark your calendars for the advent of Good Times Balls Deep, then that's essentially the objective here. With that being said, you're listening to Text Messages, Rick Tex. Thank you very much. Be back in a few minutes.
GLH means great-looking hair. GLH instantly covers your bald spot, leaving you with great-looking hair. And ladies with thinning hair or bald spots, GLH solves the problem instantly. And the GLH hair system is not expensive.
That's incredible. I've been getting harassing for being bald. I'm only a young man. No more dates without being called old man, but babes are back.
I would definitely, as a matter of fact, I want to order 1 year's supply of this.
Applying GLH to yourself is so easy. Just spray on, then brush after using the finishing shield, and you're done. And with GLH, there's no problem with the rain.
It's a phenomenal product. I highly recommend it. The club saves a lot of money.
Oh, I started using GLH about 4 months ago after my barber told me I'd never grow any more hair. Hey, Emmett, look at me now.
Order GLH now for only $39.92 and get the $15 trim comb free. Or send $39.92 plus S&H to Ronco, Box 4057, Beverly Hills, California.
Welcome back to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Text. Glad to have you here with us today on this Thursday evening, March 15th, 2018. Got a fairly nice day. It looks like the sun is out. It's about mid-40s, so snow is starting to dry up a little bit, and springtime is definitely in the air. But if you notice, we have a very different background today. I had to go try to get some more sponsors for the show so that we can continue to bring you text messages at a reasonably high level. So we're basically in my parents' basement, which was the place where I was born, raised, all that good fun stuff. A little bit of irony, a little bit of a backstory. The day I was born, the month and the day are identical to the house number here. And this has basically been with my parents long before I was born, and it still continues to be to this day. And as you can see, I mean, the house is built to last. You know, it could probably take a few direct missile hits, but it's for just a couple people that live in the house. I mean, it's definitely built to last. So yeah, who knows? Maybe they'll live here for another 50 years. I mean, you never know. But yeah, it was also important to experiment with some varying backgrounds too, or varying locations, so that if the original text messages studio does get hit with a tornado or an earthquake or a hurricane or King Kong, or maybe the SWAT team will break in and blow up the place or something like that, then it is good to have other venues to film too. I mean, if I have to film in a parking lot during my lunch break or whatever to bring you text messages, then that's exactly what's going to happen. Because the fact is, to be able to effectively promote and bring awareness to Good Times Balls Deep, we need to continue running text messages so that you, the ladies and gentlemen viewing at home, will have that opportunity to know when Good Times Balls Deep is imminent. And you don't need to have to watch every single episode of text messages, but hopefully, as long as you know that Good Times Balls Deep is coming, because for you to miss, if the ladies and gentlemen viewing at home, you, the ladies and gentlemen, miss some episodes or a few episodes of Good Times Balls Deep, I would feel personally responsible for it, and I just can't allow that to happen. So that's why it's important to continue to run text messages 3 nights a week: Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I mean, that looks like it's probably going to be done in perpetuity until any drastic changes occur. So that being said, yeah, we're broadcasting a new location. I had to try to go secure some more sponsorship for the show. So moving on though, as far as running goes, get a good pair of shoes. Do if you sit around all the time, maybe try out the Couch to 5K. And then ultimately, just try to make it fun. Figure different areas to run. Hell, you can even drive to some random city and then just run around there. Get a GPS thing on your phone to measure the distance, or just say you want to run around for an hour and just have a clock with you or a cell watch or something along those lines. So ultimately, if you don't make it fun, if you don't switch it up, eventually it's just going to feel monotonous and mundane, and then you're going to hate it. You're going to hate yourself. You're not going to look forward to it. You're going to dread if you run later in the day, you're going to dread the whole day because, you got to run and you hate it and it sucks and you don't like yourself anymore. So ultimately, just try to switch it up every once in a while, different locations, venues. Maybe run backwards for a couple miles, or sideways, or throw in a couple somersaults here and there. Just anything, here in if you're in Elk River or something, just drive to Minneapolis and then run around town, or run around with all the people, or drive to some hillbilly community and then just run around, or a bunch of cornfields, or through some random parks, or public parks, obviously. You don't want to go on some private land out in the middle of nowhere, then you might end up in a cornfield for eternity. So that's definitely something you'd want to avoid. But if you want to get involved with like 5K community runs and pay a bunch of money just to run around, then by all means go ahead and do so. I mean, paying to run seems a bit strange to me. But if it's a requirement for you in your mind to set a goal for yourself and to say, hey, if I consent to paying this money to run, it will force me to run, then I won't back out of it. So if that's what you need to do to tell yourself that you need to pay money to run, to get yourself to run, then please, I'm not in any way trying to discourage that behavior. You know, me personally, I'm not very good at making money, and I suck at spending money, so I generally wouldn't spend money to commit to an activity that I can just go outside right now and do for absolutely free of charge. You know, unless I get a ticket for jaywalking, or if I litter and then get a fine for that, then yeah, it will cost a small investment. But for the most part, you put on a good pair of shoes, go outside, just start running around. Yeah, it's just all fun and games. And you know, another thing too, if you want to get a gym membership so that you can run on a treadmill, I mean, it is nice to get that community aspect and then to be involved with other people that are also in the gym, because, you know, maybe you'll probably meet a couple close personal friends there, so, you know, you'll see them on a regular basis. You'll just chat them up. How was work today? You know, did you fly any helicopters, or you know, did you any cars fall off the jack stand and cut your leg off? You know, just basic conversations that you can have with other people in the gym. And you know, back in the good old days, there was, when I was part of a gym, you know, there's always the going joke that a lot of people will drive 5 miles to the gym and then run 10 miles and then drive home. So I mean, if that's your intention, if you don't have any intention of being social at the gym, you just want to drive 5 miles there to run 10 miles and then drive 5 miles home, obviously you're probably going to be better off just running 10 miles. Or 5 miles. Yeah, 10 miles. So just, yeah, use a little common judgment, common sense too when making decisions of that nature too. But, yeah, and you definitely need to be careful with running too, because probably back in high school, during the summer, I literally ran about probably every day throughout the whole summer, you know, 5 miles or whatever every single day. And then that was to sort of get prepared to join the cross-country team. So as soon as I joined the cross-country team, then we'd have to run like, you know, 7 to 10 miles, and then by the third day of practice, I already felt like somebody stuck a railroad spike in my knee, so I literally just missed the third day of practice. And then that was probably the first time I ever bailed out on an athletic endeavor, whether it was practice or a competition. So it was at that point where I realized that the human body actually does have limitations, and you need to listen to it, and you need to acknowledge any potential problems and issues. So it's not the whole no pain, no gain thing. It's, you know, no smart, no production or whatever. You know, it's just, you need to be smart about what you're doing. You obviously want to put in a good deal of effort too, but you know, you ought to be comfortable with it. I mean, you don't want to try to run as fast as you possibly can in a mile and then collapse after half a mile because your heart is racing so fast that you lose all the blood to your brain or something along those lines too. So there's one more study that I wanted to talk about here, and I think I might have touched it. No, I don't. No, not this one. So UMA University. I think it's UMI. I don't know what it is. I'll have to talk to the producers. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel I'm cheating this university by not properly citing it. I mean, there's a lot of people at universities that do good, positive, helpful work, and they're all contributing members to society. I mean, most of them are PhDs. I probably couldn't even last one semester in college. So for people to be a PhD in college, that takes a lot of work and dedication. I mean, they could have probably worked a full-time job for their mom's company or something, and then just made plenty of money. But instead, they chose to challenge themselves, to create goals, and then to follow through with them goals. You know, if you're going to college, you're obviously not getting paid to go to college unless you're some kind of student teacher. So to make that sacrifice, and that's usually why you see a lot of international students in America, because for them. They already made up their mind a long time ago that they're going to go through it all the way to the bitter end. Whereas somebody in America that has more of the temptations of, you know, I could maybe do a 3 or 4 year college and then work with my dad's company, but he insists that I go through college first. So it's a PhD is an enormous endeavor. And I'm not in any way undermining anyone that gets a PhD. So by UMA, I'll just say, all universities, all PhDs at universities do great, wonderful work. You know, they're probably all extremely smart people, and a lot of them will probably have families and make America great again. That's just the reality there. So, all right, going back to the study though. Examining cornea of eye with fancy microscope can determine nerve damage from type 2 diabetes. Now basically, if you know anyone with diabetes, some of them go blind. A lot of them say at some point in their life their eyes flip over, like their image goes bad or their seeing goes bad. So diabetes, it does affect a lot of nerves. Like you hear about diabetic foot, because some of the nerves get damaged on there. They're like the last line along your nerve system or whatever. So then they maybe not receive enough of the nutrients to that regenerate and get properly replenished. So your eyes are sort of, I guess, in that realm where they're, I don't know if they need more nutrients or more attention than what the type 2 diabetic can provide to them. So yeah, I mean, to have this study that can identify type 2 diabetes, that's all well and great. But ultimately, if you do have or think you have diabetes, what you need to do is you go to Walmart. There's 4 items you can buy. There's this little device that shoots a needle into your hand. There's these test strips where you can take the blood on your hand, put it on a test strip. Then there's the needle that you actually put in the device that shoots your hand. Then there's a little handheld apparatus. It's all made by this company called Relion. That's probably a blue container. So with that, you stick the needle in your hand, you wick the blood off your hand, you stick your blood into that tester, and then that will tell you your blood glucose level. So if ideally you want to be about under 100, I don't know I forget what the reading is, millimeters, Hg something or another. So you want to be below 100. And if you are creeping up into the 130, 140, 150, it'll say you have pre-diabetes. And this is a test that anybody can do. I mean, if you got anybody in your family with diabetes, it's $30 to buy all the garbage, and then just test it out a couple times. If you're always consistently below 100, 2 hours after a meal or whatever, and you don't think you have any problem, yeah, you probably don't. But I mean, there might be a chance that you have 150, 160, 170 blood sugar level. So you might have a problem, either now or in the future. And it's something you can easily test too. So that's why it's always good to talk to your body and to recognize signals and to help guide you on your path to wellness and health and well-being. Remember, work, family, friends, hobby, health. Those 5 items have to be in balance at all times. Maybe not all times, but for the most part. And if you do a daily sampling size, a weekly sampling size, typically you want them 5 items to be in balance. So you test your blood. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, where you're from, where you're going, where you came from. If you test your blood glucose level, you'll know if you're prone to diabetes or not. Now, sure, you can do like the yearly screen at a doctor where you do the fasting and then they test your blood and they say, oh, you're on 100, you're good. Right, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that probably works too. I mean, if you don't want to waste any time or money to go to Target or Walmart and buy that testing equipment, then that, go ahead, yeah, that works for you. But me personally, I worked with a guy who's probably one of the coolest guys I ever know. He still talks to me. There's absolutely no reason he needs to talk to me. There's nothing materialistically or monetarily he can get out of talking to me, but he just talks to me because he's a cool, nice guy. You'll meet a lot of people like that in the world. And obviously you need to be nice to yourself for that to happen. People just don't be nice to you if you're a dick to them. So this guy, I don't know, he took some pills or whatever because he said he was diabetic or something. So he recommended that I buy this testing equipment and then I take those tests. So I went ahead, I took his advice, I bought all the junk, and then I tested out the first couple of times. I was like 100 to 120. I figured, yeah, no big deal. But then, the more, if I would eat a bunch of fruit or I'd eat this, that, and the other thing, and then I'd run the test, I'd start to creep up into like 140, 150, 160, which was, according to the little, the manual that came with the testing equipment, that was like pre-diabetes. So I figured, all right, well, I thought about doing this quasi-Atkins diet thing, so, why don't I go ahead and just get that a shot and then continue to run these tests and then see what happens. And, I'll deep dive into the nutrition later at some show, because I've put I've documented basically everything I've eaten in the last 3 years. I took a notebook like this and I wrote down pretty much everything I've eaten, and the bowel movements, urine frequency, whether it's nighttime urination or not, how maybe personal feelings or vomiting or things like that. I try to write it all down to just carefully craft and document everything too, so that I was able to determine healthy diets. But yeah, I mean, if you have anyone in your family, if you're anybody, you think you might be prone to diabetes, just get the test things. I mean, it's not that they're really small to have too. It's not some giant container that you need to fill up your garage with. It's just a couple little boxes. You can stick them on a counter in a shelf, and you're good to go. So I mean, there's probably some other tests you can do too: blood pressure, heart rate. And I mean, you don't need to walk around with a whole bunch of needles sticking out of your hand to test stuff every single day. It's even once a month or once a week or so, you can just run a test and see, all right, yeah, I'm still healthy, because health can change quickly. Accidents, bad things, yeah, that's obviously going to change it real quick. But I mean, we all grow older, we all age, all of our cells replicate and regenerate, and we're all different than what we were yesterday. For the most part, we're fairly similar. We look the same, we talk the same, we act the same, but things are changing. So it's important to try to at least somewhat keep up with those changes, not completely overwhelm yourself with, I need to test this. Just, hey, on Saturday I'll sit down at 2 hours after breakfast, I'll see what my blood sugar is. And if it's at a healthy level, then great. Awesome, good for me, good for my family, good for America. So, yeah, I think we're coming up to the end of the show here. I don't technically have a clock with to determine definitively whether the end of the show is coming up soon, but I'll just go ahead and assume that, yeah, it's probably getting pretty close to that, because, I will get into nutrition at some point. Well, I mean, I hate that word, because when I say nutrition, I don't mean stuff that you could read in any textbooks. I mean stuff that I've documented, that I've dealt with personally, empirically, and the results that I've seen and felt and have been able to use to try to at least somewhat alter how I just basic observations. It isn't, I didn't eat bread for a week, now I feel great. It's not something like that. It's just, I spent 5 months utilizing this type of eating patterns, and this is what I've noticed. This is why I can say definitively it's different. This is what might be different, and this is probably what has no or little correlation to it. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to fill up a whole show with it, but I'll definitely tackle it at some point in the future. And, I think it's fair for the audience to know, to get at least somewhat of an idea of different ways. Not so much different ways you can eat food, but different ways you can document and then pay attention to what you're eating. Because, I'm not going to say what I'm doing is exactly what you should be doing. Because, hell, maybe what I'm doing would be very detrimental to your personal health. So you always had to keep that in mind, too. I mean, there's different blood types, there's different gut microbiotics, there's different ways people's brain operates, as you can probably clearly illustrate if you go to any social gathering. Yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider, more factors than I sure as hell would be able to. I mean, I can only analyze my own personal body of experience here, and if it in any way helps or entertains people, then that's great. To make America great again. So ultimately, Good Times, Balls Deep, it will be coming in the near future. He's going through some practice runs right now. He's trying to select some of the hardest hitting, polemical, just interesting topics that to make the show as great as it can possibly be. He's a perfectionist. He wants everything to be flawless. Probably he might be too flawless. At some point, you're just gonna have to be like, all right, if you just get the show on the air, bad things will occur on occasion, but he's just so used to winning and being great again that it might be difficult for him to accept anything but winning. So just bear with us. It will be coming in the near future. And my name is Rick Tex, broadcasting from this concrete bunker here, and glad to have you watching. This is Text Messages. Sometime in the future, we're probably going to be covering a wide array of probably continue covering static topics, maybe beehive, some kind of, maybe weightlifting. I mean, obviously, if you look at me, you can tell I don't really weightlift very seriously or very much. Then, of course, diet, nutrition, I'll just say eating. That the nutrition is a pretty annoying word. And then, I don't know what else, maybe container ships or bald eagles, whales, crocodiles, stingrays, maybe video gaming, or maybe just talking about America and how it's going to be great again. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So, ladies and gentlemen at home, thanks a lot for watching. You're listening to Text Messages. Appreciate it very much. Have a wonderful day. Do your part to make yourself great again, to make your communities great again, your family great again, your state great again, your country great again, ultimately the world great again. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.